Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible reading plan. Today we're reading 2 Chronicles chapter 30. We'll read the first 9 verses. There are no good examples in the Bible of Lone Ranger believers. Well, these opening verses here of 2 Chronicles chapter 30, the context here is that good King Hezekiah worked to bring reformation to Israel by getting rid of idolatry and reestablishing proper worship of God in the temple. We'll pick up our reading here at the beginning of 2 Chronicles 30 and read to verse 9. Hezekiah sent word to all Israel and Judah and also wrote letters to Ephraim and Manasseh, inviting them to come to the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem and to celebrate the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. The king and his officials and the whole assembly in Jerusalem decided to celebrate the Passover in the second month. They had not been able to celebrate it at the regular time because not enough priests had consecrated themselves, and the people had not assembled in Jerusalem. The plan seemed right to both the king and the whole assembly. They decided to send a proclamation throughout Israel, from Beersheba to Dan, calling the people to come to Jerusalem and celebrate the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. It had not been celebrated in large numbers, according to what was written. At the king's command, couriers went throughout Israel and Judah with letters from the king and from his officials, which read, "People of Israel, return to the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, that he may return to you who are left, who have escaped from the hand of the kings of Assyria. Do not be like your fathers and your fellow Israelites, who were unfaithful to the Lord, the God of their fathers, so that he made them an object of horror, as you see. Do not be stiff-necked as your fathers were. Submit to the Lord. Come to his sanctuary, which he consecrated forever. Serve the Lord your God, so that his fierce anger will turn away from you. If you return to the Lord, then your fellow Israelites and your children will be shown compassion by their captors and will return to this land, for the Lord your God is gracious and compassionate. He will not turn his face from you if you return to him." We've been coming to understand the obligations of church members as we work our way through Article 28 of the Belgic Confession. We believe that since the church, this holy assembly and congregation, is the gathering of those who are saved and that there's no salvation apart from it, well, we believe that no one ought to withdraw from it, content to be by himself, regardless of his status or condition. Hezekiah inherited a country in shambles from his father, who was the wicked King Ahaz. So when it came time to celebrate the Passover, which is the biggest and most important religious celebration on the Jewish calendar, well, it had to be postponed because not only were there not enough priests who had prepared themselves for it, but nobody even bothered coming to Jerusalem at the appointed time. In other words, nobody, neither the clergy nor the laity, nobody made worshiping God a priority anymore. Hezekiah realized that this failure had resulted in terrible things that had happened to Israel. So in the letter that he sent out, he told the people that this unfaithfulness caused God to make Israel an object of horror. Hezekiah demanded that the people stop being stiff-necked and instead submit to the Lord and to come to his sanctuary. Hezekiah then reminded the people of the benefit of regular assembled worship, writing, "Serve the Lord your God, for the Lord your God is gracious and compassionate. He will not turn his face from you if you return to him." Let's dig a little bit deeper. There have always been people who, because of one grievance or the other, have walked away from the church. They've noted that it's full of hypocrites and that although they love Jesus, they can't stand his church. Others may not harbor any bitterness or anger towards the church, but they feel like they experience God's presence in a fuller and deeper way by hiking or jogging or sipping coffee on the couch or laying in bed till noon on the Lord's day rather than assembling with God's people in his sanctuary. But this type of Lone Ranger religion, it's never been part of God's design. From the moment his people were freed from their slavery, God told them that they were to be a holy people, set apart and different from the world around them. And one of the key ways they were to look different was by assembling together often, to be reminded that they were his covenant people. Nowhere in the Bible will you find an example of an independent person disconnected from other covenant people who is enjoying God's blessing. Quite the opposite, in fact, as King Hezekiah would be very quick to agree with. Although so much has changed about how and why covenant people meet together after Christ arose, the pattern God set for his people thousands of years ago continues to be relevant today. So as you pray today, begin your prayer by acknowledging who God is. Let's open our prayer to our Father, who is gracious and compassionate. He will not turn his face from you if you return to him. Then go on to align your life with God's will. Do that by praying that you and those close to you will truly desire to meet with God's people often, and that you'll experience the blessings associated with doing so. Then you can ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today will fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.